Good morning. We're continuing to talk about guardrails this week, and I thought I'd just remind us, not that you don't already know this, but what a guardrail is. And a guardrail is a system designed to keep vehicles from straying into dangerous or off-limit areas. And same way in our personal lives, we're talking about personal guardrails that keep us from straying into those areas of our lives that are off-limit areas or may be dangerous to us. A couple reminders, we're also talking about where we place those guardrails. Where do we place guardrails on the road? In the place of danger or before the place of danger? Before, right? We know that. That's obvious. That's wise. And the other thing about a guardrail is it's firmly established. We talked last week about how we try to get a guardrail to come in here, and there's an 8-foot steel girder that goes into the ground to support that guardrail, to keep it in place. And so we have to have firmly established guardrails. And we also mentioned that a guardrail is a matter of conscience. And we put it at the level of our conscience so that we're knowing when we're bumping up against that and having that matter of conscience. And so we're going to be talking about that because that's what Jesus encouraged us to do. Now, I've now lived long enough to see that our conscience, what was a matter of conscience 20 years ago, is not necessarily the same matter of conscience today. If you've lived long enough, you start to see that. I didn't see that earlier in life, but as I live longer, I start to see that, what was 20 years ago a real strong guardrail for our society or for our culture is no longer a guardrail, or it's moved. And I've seen this in different ways, but I thought one example of this, and I'm not trying to be political or anything like that, but I know one thing: Colorado just legalized the use of marijuana. Maryland's actually looking at that possibility here as they're gathering these next couple months. And so I thought about that. I said, when I was growing up, back in the day when I had to walk uphill in the snow, 5 feet of snow and all that stuff, back in the day, we were taught, there was a big campaign that was out there that was about drugs, and you don't do drugs, and it was just say no. You know that campaign, right? And so that was ingrained in us. And marijuana use was, hey, that's bad. That's a matter of conscience. And when I was growing up in high school, people who smoked pot were not the cool kids. Does that make sense? And so they were not necessarily the cool kids when I was growing up. Now, flip forward to today, and this is what happens after generations. Today, 62% of young adults favor the legalization of marijuana, and now it's starting to be seen as kind of hip and cool and trendy to do this, and that it's okay. And I think about that, how that has changed over time. Now, here's the thing that hasn't changed: the facts. The facts about marijuana use have not changed over the same time. Some things, the facts change, and we learn something. But really, the reality is the facts haven't changed about its use. It still makes it affects your cognitive reasoning. It lowers IQ. It also, there's some studies suggesting that there's a link to mental illness, that the use of marijuana can trigger mental illness in people that might not otherwise be triggered because of its use. And there's a whole lot of research around that. But so the facts haven't changed. It's still the same facts that they were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, yet today it's become more acceptable. And I would say that's what I would call conscience creep. It's creeped up on us. That creep is like what business world, they use a term creep, or in the scientific world it's called creep, when there's just these imperceptible changes over time and you don't even realize it's happening. And I think culturally, society, that's what happens with some of our guardrails, some of our matters of conscience, that over time, they just imperceptibly move, and we haven't even noticed that they've moved until we get into a different place. And that just happens over time through generations. Now, I'm also going to be talking about how that can happen not only over time, but even within a very short period of time as we relate to our friends. Because that's what we want to really talk about today, is how this happens in our relationships. So Proverbs has you've heard a lot of Proverbs. Great thing about Proverbs is that one proverb stands on its own. They were meant to be memorized. And the proverb I want to look at this morning, one of them is 13:20, which said, we heard read, "Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm." Now, to walk means to do life with, to go through life with someone else, to walk with them. And if we're walking with people who are wise, they'll bring out the best in us. And if we're walking with people who are foolish, they'll bring out the worst in us. So who we walk through life with, who we do life with, impacts us, influences us. And so that's important to be aware of that. Now, I want to talk about the power of proximity too, the power of relational proximity. So there are lots of people that we're in proximity to. Right now, you're in proximity to somebody, right? But they may have, the person behind you that you don't know, they have no influence over you. They're not in relational proximity, they're in physical proximity. The people in your neighborhood, they may live next door to you, but they may have no influence over your life. Or the people that you work with, you go to work with and say hi to every day, they may be in your life, but they may have no influence over your life. I want to talk about those people who are in proximity, relational proximity to us, that we do allow to influence us. Those people who shape our values, who give us advice, who give us counsel, those friends of ours that help actually guide the direction and determine the direction of our lives. And there are people in our lives that do that. So I want you to think about that. Who are the people that you're in relational proximity with that influence you, that impact you, that may even shape your values, your guardrails, your decisions? Because what the Proverbs is saying is that wise friends bring out the best in us and will help us to be wise. Now, I was in a doctoral program several years ago, and we got to meet other pastors and their families, and we met up with one of those families this past summer for family vacation. And we got on vacation together, and our daughters were all together. They hadn't seen each other probably, they spent a lot of time together when they were 4 or 5 years old, and now they were teenagers. And so we were hanging out all week together, having a good time, playing games, doing things, going to Disney, eating junk food, all that good stuff. That's what pastors do on vacation. That's as crazy as it gets. Hot tamale overdose. So that happens. And so we get into this, and we're having a great week. And I noticed something, that as the girls got back together, these childhood friends got together now as adolescent friends and teenagers, that I saw my daughters start to do things that surprised me. And one of the things that happened was they were getting up and going running on the beach, like 2-3 miles. And I'm like, I look at my wife and go, are those our daughters? That's our kids? The ones who like to sleep in, they're getting up and going running on the beach, right? I've asked to go running with them several times, and I always get, no way, Dad, I'm not running with you. And then one morning they get up to watch the sunrise with their friend. They all get up, they decide they're going to go see the sunrise. And I'm like, wait, haven't we offered to do that with them? What are these our daughters? Are these the same daughters that we brought on this trip with us? So we start to question this. So what's going on? It's the power of proximity with another friend, right? And this other friend is the one encouraging, hey, let's go running because she was athletic. Hey, let's get up and see the sunrise. So, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's go do it. So this was a good influence on our daughters. End of the week happens. We pack up the cars. We're staying in the parking lot. Steve, the other guy, the other dad, and I were staying in the parking lot. We got the cars loaded up. We're on our, mission to get home. And we're staying in their parking lot waiting to go because the girls are crying. They don't want to leave each other. There's been this great, and our wives are up, we don't want to, so all this is going on. And what I realized on the way home was this idea that there's power in proximity. We hadn't been together, but when we got back together again and we were back in relationship again, that influenced our daughters. The other thing I found out, that the other teenage daughter from our friend's family, that she didn't have great friends back at home, and it was just she missed what it was to have quality friendships, to have quality relationship, people that cared about her and were kind to her and didn't, stab her in the back. And so it was hard for her. So what happened was when our daughters came together, they brought out the best in each other, is what I'm saying. And it was really cool to watch. Now, the opposite is also true. That if we hang out and walk with fools, they'll not bring out the best in us. They'll actually bring out the worst in us. And, I saw this. We've probably had experience like this, but I remember growing up as a kid, about 2 miles from our housing development, we had a little store, a roadside store. And my friends and I used to ride our BMX bikes. This was pre-mountain biking, before they came out with mountain bikes. So you know how old I really am now. So we had to ride these BMX bikes, and we ride them 2 miles up to the roadside store, and we'd get candy, ice cream, soda, Coke, whatever it was, root beer. And we'd go up there and get all our junk food and everything, and we'd ride up there, and then we'd get there. And so one day we're riding up there, heading up to the store, and one of the guys says to one of my other friends, hey, when the clerk goes in the back, let's take some candy and not pay for it. And on the inside of me, I'm going, I'm not doing that. That's wrong. That's stealing. And so they're going on, they're planning to do this. They go in, The clerk goes in the back, they take candy bar, take some ice cream, whatever. They come out and they're all like, hey, look what I got. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I had a guardrail. I had said to me, this is wrong. And so I didn't participate. So fast forward a few days, another week, I don't know how much time had gone by. Somebody says, hey, let's go up to the store, let's get some soda bottles, let's get some candy. All right, let's go. So we all get on our bikes again, we're riding up to the store. And they start talking about what they're going to take this time. And then one of them says to me, Poole, what are you going to take? And I was like, I don't know. I mumbled, hemmed and hawed. But it started me thinking. And so all the way up there, I'm thinking, what am I going to take? What am I going to take? What am I going to take? And I get in the store, and the clerk goes in the back, and my friends take something. They get outside. I'm the only one left in the store. Clerk's in the back, and I'm still strategizing. It seemed like an eternity. But I figured it out. There was an ice cream case right by the door as you headed out the store. And in that were Hershey's popsicles for 5 cents. And I figured 5 cents is like one of the cheapest things here. So what's it going to matter? What's a nickel? Back then, nickel, big deal. But I was thinking, what is it going to matter if I just do this little thing? And I also had the strategy that if I could just get it out of the case, hide it, walk out the door, clerk would never see. I could get away with it. So I had my strategy, I had my plan. I began to execute. I reached in, grabbed the 5-cent popsicle. As I was pulling it out, clerk comes out. I walk over to the counter, put it on the counter, pull my nickel out, pay for it. What if the clerk hadn't come back? Now, the not the bonus, but I get out there, but now I've got a story to save face with my friends, right? Because I would have got caught, and nobody wants to get caught, so I had an excuse for not doing it. But my question is, I intended to do it. What happened to my guardrail? The guardrail that was so firmly a matter of conscience a week before that was now something that I was tempted by. What changed? What was going on? What moved my guardrail even though I had it? My friends. The influence of my friends who questioned me, who were encouraging me to do it, who were saying, hey, yeah, look what and I had watched them do it and saw them get away with it. So it made it more of a temptation for me because I watched it, even though I had that guardrail. But that guardrail moved for me because of the influence of my friends. And that shows you the danger of having friends that are foolish. Because when we go along with some of our foolish friends, we get ourselves into trouble and do foolish things. The other thing we need to know is, what is a good friend? What does a great friend look like? And Proverbs gives us that too. Proverbs 17:17 says this, a friend loves at all times, and kinsfolk are born to share adversity. That's what a good friend does. That a good friend doesn't leave you if you don't do what they want you to do. They don't manipulate you like my friends did at the store. Good friends love you no matter what. Good friends stay beside you when you go through the tough times and the adversity. They stick through it with you. They don't give up on you. And in fact, they help you build guardrails, not move guardrails. They're the ones that help you create them, put them in place, not, hey, move them away. Let me give you a few thoughts, examples. Do your friends tell you at a party, go ahead, have another drink? What's it going to hurt? Or does your friend say to you, you do deserve a better spouse, and I think it's okay for you to pursue that other relationship, to have that affair? Or, I know you're on a diet, but here, have another slice of cheesecake. Right? We know some people who get it. Or, you deserve to ride in style. Go ahead, buy that expensive car because you deserve to be happy. Whatever makes you happy is what we say. But let's flip the switch a little bit. What if our friend said something like this to us? I think you've had enough to drink. Or, you do deserve a better spouse and you're married to one. Go work on your marriage. Or, you are doing a great job on your diet. Period. No offer of cheesecake. Or, is that car really in your price range? Is this going to lead you into debt that you can't afford to pay off later? So friends help us keep our guardrails. Good friends help us create guardrails and keep guardrails in place. They don't encourage us to move them. You know, good friends do that for us. And as proverb, there's another proverb that you may be familiar with that says this: iron sharpens iron as one friend sharpens another. That friends ought to make us better. Friends ought to sharpen us rather than dull us down, dumb us down. Make us foolish rather than wise. You know, I got home the other night to 3 women again. Happens every night. And they were in there watching The Biggest Loser. Is anybody familiar with that show? I know a lot of people like that show. It's been pretty popular. I don't watch Biggest Loser for a variety of reasons. I'm tear avoidant or something, I don't know. But so they're in there watching it, and they're looking at this going on. And I was watching this show. In a lot of ways, I looked at these personal trainers that are working with folks on this show. And I thought, what these personal trainers are doing, what are they doing? They're helping people build guardrails in the area of diet and exercise. They're helping them put in place those things they need to be the best selves that they are called to be. So they're encouraging, but they're also challenging them, aren't they? I mean, they're not saying, oh, yeah, if you don't feel like, running that other mile, just get off the treadmill. I mean, they don't do that. They go the extra mile. They're encouraging them. They're pushing them. They're saying, this is what's going to help you be the person that you want to be, that you are called to be, because life has gotten out of balance. And in a lot of ways, they are being good friends in the best sense, in the way that they're helping build these guardrails for them around diet, around exercise, that will also help them to be successful beyond being on the show. And I thought about that, how they're good friends. But the other scary thought that I had at the moment too was I wanted to ask the people on the show, where are your friends? Where are your friends that let you get to this place in your life? Where are the friends that challenge you, that encourage you, that sharpen you, and say, I want to help you? I'm not sure we have those kind of friends anymore in our society. In fact, I'm concerned that we're such a rugged individualist society, that we're so ingrained in do it on your own, pull yourself up by your bootstrap kind of a place, and a kind of a nation and a kind of culture, that we don't depend on other people to challenge us, to encourage us, to help us build guardrails for one another. Do we have friends like that? Do we really have wise friends who help us, give us the tools, give us the resources, give us the encouragement we need to build guardrails? Or do we have the kind of friends that just say, hey, do whatever feels right to you? Good friends, wise friends are needed. Because that's the issue. We can either walk with the wise or we can run with fools. Walk with the wise or run with fools. How do you know if you're running with fools? Well, let me give you a few indicators. Well, a few things to think about. I took this from Andy Stanley's message on guardrails. 5 things he says I'm going to go through real quickly. First, number one is you recognize that your core group of friends isn't moving in the same direction you want your life to be moving in. So if you start to establish guardrails and you start to look at what God is calling you and who God's calling you to be in your life, and you're going this direction, and your core group of friends, those power of proximity people, are moving a different direction, it may be time to evaluate who your friends are. Number 2, you catch yourself pretending to be someone other than who you really are when you're around people. Now, I think we all do this to a certain degree in our relationship. There are certain groups of people that when we're with them, we change who we are and what we talk about and how we behave. We even do that with our families. But are we able to be ourselves? Remember, a true friend loves at all times, whether we're in good place, bad place, whether we're at our best or at our worst. A good friend says, I want you to be yourself. I want you to be authentic. Number 3, you feel pressure to compromise. That's exactly what was happening when I told you that story about going to the store. What was once not a temptation, remember, the first week it was not a temptation for me, and all of a sudden a week later it becomes a live option, a possibility. Why? Because I was feeling pressure from my friends to compromise my guardrail, to move my guardrail. Number 4, you say to yourself, I'll go, but I won't participate. How many people have ever said that one before? How many people were good at not participating? Sometimes we got it right, sometimes we didn't. And number 5, you hope the people you care about most don't find out where you've been or who you've been with. If we're hiding people, if we're hiding areas of our lives from other people, the people that love us and care about us, if we're hiding our friends, those friends, from other people, then there may be a problem. There may be an issue. There may be something unhealthy there. So I want you to reflect. I want to challenge you to think about this week, and even not this week, but now. Last week we unpacked Ephesians, talking about living wisely last weekend, and one of the things it said, Paul wrote, was make the most of your time. Make the most of every opportunity, because we don't want to live life with regrets. And regrets are always looking back and say, man, I wish I had done that differently. Now there may be a place that you're at right now where you're bumping up against a guardrail. That guardrail is being pushed upon, pressured upon. That desire, you're thinking about making room for that desire. And what I want to say is, I don't want you to look back at today and say, I wish I had done things differently. So make today your second chance. Make today the day that you get in your time machine a year from now and come back to this day and say, I'm going to do it differently today, so that a year from now, I'm not going to look back and say, I wish I had done things differently. Move back behind the guardrail, so that someday you don't look back on today and say, I wish I had walked with the wise. Let's pray together. God, we come to you today, and we know that every week, every day, we face temptations. We struggle with our desires. And God, you have given us guardrails to put in place in our lives to make a matter of our conscience. And some of us still need to build those guardrails. We need to put those guardrails in place in our lives. And God, we're praying for wisdom, praying for good friends that will help us build those guardrails, construct those guardrails, and help them to be strong and keep them strong. God, give us wise friends. Give us wise people in our lives that we can go to, that we can turn to, that will help us to put those things in place, that will protect and direct us to be the best, to bring out the best in each of us, so that we're not running with fools. God, we thank you for the power of your Spirit, and that you call us into relationship with you, you're a wise God, and you will give us wisdom when we ask for it, and you will be in relationship with us when we ask for that relationship. That God, we can walk with our wise God and not just depend upon other people sometimes that aren't good for us. So God, give us that wisdom, give us your presence, give us your strength, so that as we live this life, you will direct us and protect us for everything that you have that's good for us. And we pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.